She was asleep in row 10, face turned toward the window, a soft hum of engines drowning out the world. The flight from San Diego to Washington, D.C. had been quiet so far, except for a crying baby 2 rows ahead and the occasional rustle of snack wrappers. Outside, clouds looked like floating icebergs in a silver sea. Inside, everything felt safe, routine, predictable, until the captain's voice cracked over the intercom, sharp and urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a situation on board. If there is a Top Gun pilot here, please identify yourself immediately." The words hung in the air like a lightning bolt no one saw coming. Conversations froze. Hands holding coffee cups paused mid-air. The baby even stopped crying, as if the universe itself was listening. Row 10, seat B, where she slept, earphones in, cap pulled low, didn't move at first, but row 10 was about to become the center of the sky. People started whispering. Did he say Top Gun pilot? Like Navy fighter pilot? Is this some kind of prank? A man in a suit leaned into the aisle, scanning faces. "Maybe there's turbulence or something," he muttered, trying to sound calm but failing. The flight attendants exchanged glances. One of them, a young woman with blonde hair tied in a perfect bun, hurried to the cockpit. The other stood frozen near the galley, holding a tray of empty cups like a shield. In row 10, the woman still slept, her head bobbing slightly with the rhythm of the plane. Her name was Lila Hart, though no one on the flight knew that yet. To them, she was just another passenger, late 20s maybe, wearing an old Navy hoodie, scuffed sneakers, and the kind of stillness that made her invisible. She didn't look like someone who had once flown faster than sound. The captain's voice returned, tighter this time. "If you have military flight experience, any, please come forward immediately." And that's when Lila stirred. Slowly, she pulled one earbud out. The hum of nervous voices filled her half-dreaming mind. Her first thought was that she must have heard wrong. Top Gun? No way. Not here, not now. Then she saw the faces. The rows of people twisting to look back, searching for someone brave, someone qualified. Something cold settled in her chest. She'd promised herself she'd never answer that kind of call again. Not after what happened over the Pacific 2 years ago. She leaned forward, squinting toward the front. And that's when she saw him, the Admiral. He was standing near the cockpit door, tall and commanding even in a wrinkled travel jacket. His gray hair glinted under the cabin lights, and though his face was calm, his eyes were scanning the rows like radar. Lila recognized that posture instantly. Military, alert, in control, she sat up straighter without meaning to. The Admiral's voice boomed, louder than the intercom. "Is there a Top Gun pilot on this flight?" Silence. Every eye turned toward him, then toward each other. Someone whispered, "What's going on?" Then, without quite realizing why, Lila stood. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. Row 10, aisle seat. She pushed her hood back, blinked, and took a step forward. The Admiral's eyes found hers immediately. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, then recognition. "Lieutenant Hart?" he said quietly. "Lila Hart." Gasps rippled down the aisle. Lila froze. "You've got the wrong person," she murmured, but her voice betrayed her. Steady, trained, unmistakably military. The Admiral gave a small, grim smile. "No mistake. You're exactly who we need right now." Passengers parted like a tide as she moved toward him, confusion thick in the air. A teenager whispered, "Is she really a pilot?" Someone else muttered, "Top Gun, like Maverick Top Gun." Lila stopped, just short of the cockpit door. "What's the situation, sir?" The Admiral lowered his voice. "We've lost autopilot and comms. Our pilot's semi-conscious, possible cardiac event. We're an hour out and we need manual control now. Her stomach dropped. You're kidding. I wish I were. He gestured to the door. Can you fly a seven? She hesitated. Fighter jets were her world. Sleek, fast, responsive. A commercial jet was another beast entirely. But the way he looked at her, it wasn't a question. It was an order delivered softly, wrapped in trust. Let me see what we're dealing with, she said finally. As the door closed behind her, the cabin erupted in whispers. Someone started recording on their phone. She's going to fly the plane? Inside the cockpit, the air smelled of coffee and fear. The captain slumped in his seat, pale but breathing. The co-pilot, younger and trembling, was trying to keep the plane level. Hydraulics are fine, he said, but controls are heavy. We've got no nav link. Lila slid into the captain's chair, hands moving instinctively. Okay, let's breathe. You're doing fine. Give me trim. Check rudder response. The co-pilot stared. Who are you? She's Top Gun, the Admiral said quietly behind them. Best damn flyer in the Pacific Fleet. Lila didn't respond. Her focus tunneled to the instruments. Her heart thudded, but her hands were steady. We're slightly nose up. That's why you're fighting it. I've got control. The yoke responded sluggishly, but it responded. The plane leveled. She took a deep breath. All right, we're stable for now. Let's get him some oxygen and keep altitude steady. What's our heading? The co-pilot blinked at her, half in awe. East-northeast. Good. Let's keep it that way. The Admiral leaned close. We've got a medical team on standby in D.C., but if he gets worse, then we divert, Lila finished. She was back in her world again, calm under pressure, reading every dial like a heartbeat. For the first time in 2 years, she felt alive. Minutes passed. The plane held steady. Then turbulence hit, sudden, violent, like a fist out of nowhere. The cabin screamed. Coffee flew. The co-pilot cursed. Easy, Lila barked. We're in a crosswind layer. Hold pitch. She fought the controls, arms straining as the aircraft bucked. The horizon tilted. Alarms blared, but she held it, barely. The turbulence passed as quickly as it came. The Admiral exhaled. Hell of a grip, Lieutenant. She allowed a ghost of a smile. Haven't forgotten how to fly, sir, but deep down, something was wrong. The instruments were flickering again. Static cracked through the radio. A broken voice emerged. Flight 29, you are off course by 5 degrees. Respond. The co-pilot fumbled with the comms. It's back. We've got ATC. But the relief lasted only a second before the voice dissolved into static again. Lila frowned. That wasn't normal interference. That sounded like a sudden knock on the cockpit door made them all jump. A flight attendant's muffled voice came through. Captain, someone wants to talk to you. Says it's urgent. The Admiral opened the door a crack. A man stood there, tall, sharp suit, calm in a way that made Lila uneasy. He held up a badge. Federal Air Marshal, he said. We may have a bigger problem than a sick pilot. Lila turned in her seat. Meaning what? He glanced at the Admiral, then back at her. Meaning, Lieutenant Hart, someone may have sabotaged this aircraft. The hum of the engines suddenly felt louder, the air thicker. Lila's eyes flicked to the co-pilot. His face had gone pale. The Admiral's jaw tightened. How sure are you? Sure enough, the Marshal said. There's evidence the navigation system was tampered with before takeoff. Lila's hands tightened on the yoke. And you're telling me this now? Because, he said slowly, whoever did it might still be on board. Lila's pulse spiked. The cabin behind her, the rows of unsuspecting passengers, someone among them might have just turned a commercial flight into a trap. The Admiral looked at her. Hart, can you keep us steady? Yeah, she said, though her throat was dry. But if that's true, we're not just flying, we're being hunted. And somewhere around row 10, a man in a gray hoodie looked up from his seat, watching the cockpit door with a faint, knowing smile. The man in the gray hoodie shifted in his seat, eyes glinting like tiny blades behind wire-framed glasses. He wasn't panicking like the others. In fact, he looked oddly calm, almost entertained. His fingers tapped lightly on his armrest, like someone counting down. Inside the cockpit, the tension was electric. Lila's grip on the controls stayed firm, but her mind was racing. Sabotage. The word carried weight, heavier than gravity. She glanced at the Admiral, who was already speaking quietly with the air marshal in low, clipped tones. "Do we know who?" the Admiral asked. "Not yet," the marshal said. "But there's a small device in the avionics bay. It's wired into the flight computer, hidden deep. Whoever did it knew what they were doing." The co-pilot looked like he'd swallowed ice. "A bomb?" "Not sure," the marshal said. "Could be something to disrupt systems. Could be worse." Lila's stomach twisted. "Then we need to keep this bird steady while you find it." She checked the gauges again. Altitude, airspeed, pitch, everything seemed stable for now. But she knew how quickly that could change. A modern jet was a delicate symphony of electronics and hydraulics. One bad note, and the whole song could end in fire. The Admiral turned to her. "Can you keep her level if the systems start going down?" Lila smirked slightly. "Sir, I once landed an FA-18 with one engine and half a wing. I'll manage." The Admiral's lips twitched. "That's why I called for a Top Gun." The marshal nodded and slipped out to check the cargo hold. The door shut behind him, sealing the cockpit again. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the engines and the steady beeping of the altimeter. Lila tried to keep her breathing even. Her mind flashed back, the mission over the Pacific, the explosion, her wingman's voice fading from the radio. She'd sworn she'd never touch a control stick again, and yet, here she was, halfway across the country holding the lives of 200 strangers in her hands. The Admiral must have sensed her thoughts. "You still have it, Hart?" he said softly. "That instinct." She gave a dry laugh. "Instinct's one thing, sir. Luck's another." Suddenly, the cockpit lights dimmed. The instruments flickered again once, twice, then died. The sound of the engines dipped, a low groan that made every bone in her body tense. "Power loss," the co-pilot shouted. "Backup systems now." Lila barked. The Admiral grabbed the emergency checklist, flipping pages fast. "Auxiliary power, standby." Lila's hands danced across the panel, fingers moving on muscle memory. "Come on." For a few heartbeats, there was nothing, just darkness and the feeling of free fall. Then, mercifully, a few lights blinked back to life. The engines surged weakly. The plane stabilized, though still trembling like it was alive and afraid. "Partial power restored," Lila said, voice steady. "But someone's cutting through the systems like they're testing us." The Admiral's jaw clenched. "Then we find them before they finish." Outside, the world was turning orange, sunset bleeding into the clouds. Inside, fear was spreading faster than turbulence. Passengers whispered in anxious tones. Some cried quietly. Others prayed. A teenage boy stood in the aisle, holding his phone up like a weapon. "Hey, is someone gonna tell us what's happening?" he shouted. A flight attendant tried to calm him, but the cabin was unraveling. Panic was contagious. In row 10, the man in the gray hoodie was watching it all unfold. He leaned back, almost smiling, then reached into his back. A woman beside him noticed and frowned. "What are you doing?" He turned to her, voice calm as a whisper. "Just making sure the signal stays clean." Before she could ask what that meant, He stood up and walked toward the rear galley. Back in the cockpit, the air marshal's voice came through the intercom. Static-filled. Panicked. "Admiral, we found it. There's a device. Looks like a transmitter wired into the main computer. I'm disarming it now." The Admiral grabbed the mic. "Can you disable it safely?" There was a pause. Then the marshal's voice again, more urgent. "Wait. It's active. Someone's triggering it remotely." Lila felt her stomach drop. Remotely? From where? And then she realized. Her eyes widened. The cabin. It's coming from inside. Without another word, she unbuckled and stormed out, the Admiral right behind her. The co-pilot yelled after them, "I can't hold it alone." "You'll manage," Lila called back. She pushed through the curtain into the main cabin. Every head turned. A murmur spread like a wave. "That's the pilot. What's going on?" Lila scanned the rows, scanning hands, faces, bags. Her eyes landed on the empty seat in row 10. The hoodie man was gone. She turned to the Admiral. "Row 10, he's missing." They hurried down the aisle. Passengers leaned away as they passed, fear in every eye. At the rear, near the galley, Lila spotted movement. The man in the gray hoodie was crouched near the storage panel, his hand inside his bag, wires glinting faintly. "Stop!" she shouted. He looked up, slow and calm like someone expecting applause. "You shouldn't be here, Lieutenant Hart," he said softly, his voice oddly familiar. "You were supposed to stay grounded." Her mind reeled. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "Call me Ghost. You probably remember the call sign." She froze. Ghost. Her former wingman. The one who'd gone missing after the Pacific crash. Presumed dead. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." "Oh, it's very possible," he said, standing now, holding a small transmitter in one hand. "You see, when you left me out there, I learned something. The system doesn't care who it burns. The Navy, the brass, they bury you alive when you stop being useful. I'm just making sure the world listens this time." Her pulse hammered. "Ghost, listen to me. Whatever this is, we can fix it. You don't have to." He raised the device slightly. "Oh, I do. The moment this plane drops below 10,000 feet. This transmitter will send a signal that wipes every major radar feed within 500 miles. A little reminder that control is an illusion." The Admiral's voice was cold steel. "You'll kill innocent people." Ghost shrugged. "Collateral. Just like me." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Lila took a slow step forward. "You trained me, remember? You told me flying wasn't about control, it was about trust. So trust me now. Hand it over." He stared at her, jaw tight, eyes torn between hate and memory. "You think you still know me?" "I do," she said softly. "Because I remember the man who saved me that day over the Pacific." His hand trembled slightly. The plane lurched, shaking them both. He looked toward the window, then back at her. "You always were the better pilot," he said quietly. And then he tossed her the transmitter. "Take it." Lila caught it, just as the Admiral tackled him to the floor. The device beeped once, then went still in her hand. The marshal's voice crackled over the intercom. "We've got full control again. The device is disabled." Lila's knees went weak with relief. Ghost lay restrained, staring blankly at the ceiling. "You should have let me finish it," he muttered. She looked at him for a long moment. "No, Ghost. You already did. You finished proving why we fight to protect, not destroy." Back in the cockpit, she took the controls again. The night had fully fallen outside, stars glowing faint through the dark. She guided the plane through the clouds, gentle, steady. As the runway lights of Washington came into view, the Admiral leaned over and said quietly, You saved them, Hart. You saved all of us. Lila smiled faintly. Guess I'm back on duty, huh? He chuckled. You never really left. The plane touched down smooth as silk. Applause breaking through the cabin like thunder. Lila sat back, breath shaking, When the passengers disembarked, she stood at the cockpit door, face calm, hands still trembling slightly. One by one, they thanked her. A little girl even saluted. But as the Admiral walked past, he paused. You know they'll want you back, he said. Lila smiled. Maybe. But for now, I think I've earned a nap in row 10. He laughed softly and walked off. Outside, the sirens flashed red and blue across the tarmac. Ghost was taken away in cuffs, his eyes distant but not angry. Almost peaceful, like a man who finally stopped running. Lila watched him go, the wind cool against her face. The stars above looked different now, brighter, closer, almost forgiving. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Clear skies, Ghost," and for the first time in years, she felt weightless again. Sometimes it takes falling from the sky to remember who you are. And sometimes the past you ran from becomes the reason you rise again.